Hey everybody, this is just a legal disclaimer. Feel free to slow down and read it if you want. If not, just remember, innocent until proven guilty, allegations are allegations, and jokes are jokes. Welcome to Elected. I'm your host, Luke Radel, and when I said it would take a pretty major piece of breaking news to pull me away from my vacation, I didn't think it would be quite this big.
Up in New York, Lieutenant Governor Brian Benjamin's been arrested today and charged in a campaign finance scheme.
Yeah, so it turns out the number 2 official in state government resigned today after he was arrested this morning in connection with a campaign finance scheme during his time as a state senator. So, what exactly happened here, and how did Brian Benjamin end up in the position that he's in now? Well, for more on this, it's time for a closer look. My sincerest apologies to Seth Meyers. Here's how Damian Williams, the U.S. Attorney for the Southern District of New York and a magician concentrating on your card, the 4 of clubs, laid out the case against Brian Benjamin at a news conference today.
This is a simple story of corruption. We allege that Benjamin struck a corrupt bargain with the real estate developer, referred to in the indictment as CC1. Benjamin allegedly directed a $50,000 state grant to a nonprofit organization controlled by CC1. And in exchange, Benjamin received tens of thousands of dollars of campaign contributions from CC1. Taxpayer money for campaign contributions. Quid pro quo. This for that. That's bribery, plain and simple.
The indictment says that the lieutenant governor bribed Harlem real estate developer Gerald Migdal to secure small campaign contributions that could be used to obtain tens of thousands of additional dollars in public matching funds through a New York City program. Prosecutors said that Benjamin, who was about to launch a campaign for city comptroller, first approached Mr. Migdal in March of 2019 in a meeting at Migdal's home, which, by the way, Brian, if you're going to try and get someone in on your criminal scheme, take them out someplace nice for dinner. Maybe like the Olive Garden? I don't know. I know I'd like my bribes to be in the form of those unlimited breadsticks. The developer told Benjamin that it would be challenging to help because of the pool of possible contributors that he would turn to was the same one that he needed to solicit support for his own charity, Friends of Public School Harlem, a group known for giving out school supplies and groceries to needy families. According to the indictment, after Migdal told Benjamin that he was not going to get these campaign contributions for him, Benjamin replied, "Let me see what I can do," which, spoiler alert, the thing that he found that he could do was bribery, so that's fun. In the months that followed, prosecutors said that Benjamin proceeded to use his state Senate office to secure a $50,000 taxpayer-funded education grant for the charity that Mr. Migdal had never requested, and used it as leverage to push Migdal to gather contributions. But just in case that wasn't explicit enough for him, Benjamin texted the developer in June of that year, writing, "Do you recognize the third entry on that list?" with a screenshot of Mr. Migdal's charity listed among the projects receiving aid. "Hey, Gerald. Gerald.
Yes, Brian?
Did you see I got that bribe? The illegal bribe I gave you to do the thing I want?" Yeah, I got it, man. Thanks. Oh, and if that wasn't obvious enough, Benjamin and Migdal took a photo together a few months later that was posted on Facebook of them holding a giant cardboard check with the bribe money on it. And honestly, the only way they could have made it easier for the FBI to find them is if that photo looked like this. Within weeks, Mr. Migdal was sending a steady stream of fraudulent donations into the Benjamin campaign, with one being made in the name of his 2-year-old grandchild, who the New York Times notes did not consent to them, which, yeah, obviously he didn't consent to it.
He's 2 years old.
But if it wasn't illegal for individuals under 18 to contribute to political campaigns, I think we'd all be very impressed if a 2-year-old did consensually contribute to a campaign for the city comptroller. Other donors were not toddlers, but people who had made donations in their own names, only to be fully reimbursed by Migdal after the fact, which really means that Migdal made those donations. That'd be like saying, "Oh no, Walmart didn't pay for my food. I paid for the food, and then Walmart gave me all of my money back and all of the food." Brian Benjamin knew that Migdal was doing this. In fact, some of these illegal activities happened right in front of him in his Harlem office. Prosecutors said that Migdal, quote, handed him 3 checks totaling $25,000 made out to his Senate campaign account, 2 in the name of the developer's relatives, and 1 from an LLC he controlled. Then, the developer filled out campaign contribution forms and signed the names of his relatives in the presence of Mr. Benjamin, who accepted them despite knowing the contributions were really from Mr. Migdal, who was attempting to conceal his involvement. He also reminded the developer about the grant and the need for smaller contributions, as if to say, hey, I'm really jazzed about all the crimes you're committing in front of me and at my direction right now. But just remember, I'd really like you to commit some more crimes very, very soon. Oh, and by the way, all this funny money that he was passing around didn't even help him because he finished 4th last year in the Democratic primary for comptroller. It's astounding to me that he didn't have the reliable votes of his 2-year-old donor base. Over time, Benjamin repeatedly hid his knowledge of the scheme from New York City and state authorities. Most notably, the indictment says that during a background check for his appointment as lieutenant governor, Mr. Benjamin twice falsely claimed that he had never directly exercised his governmental authority concerning a matter of a donor he asked for money. We actually have a video clip of the then prospective lieutenant governor answering that question.
What? Me do that? Oh, come on. I would never. Who told you that? Who told you that?
When Governor Hochul picked then State Senator Brian Benjamin as her second in command, the decision was widely seen as a way for her, as a white moderate from Buffalo, to expand her appeal to non-white voters in New York City ahead of this year's elections, according to the New York Times. It is unclear, though, how carefully the governor or her advisors vetted Benjamin before the appointment, as there had already been published reports by the city at the time showing that Mr. Benjamin's campaign had benefited from apparent straw donations, though honestly, these donations seem a lot more like paper straws since they are a scourge on the community and don't actually do the job they're supposed to. So what changed in the months since that announcement that led to Brian Benjamin's arrest? Well, the New York Times is reporting that, quote, Mr. Migdal began providing information to investigators after he was arrested in November on charges of wire fraud, aggravated identity theft, and other crimes related to his role in the fundraising scheme, according to people with knowledge of the matter. Today, Benjamin pleaded not guilty at a brief appearance in federal district court in Lower Manhattan and was released on a $250,000 bond. And apparently he borrowed that money to pay off the bond from a 3-year-old named Michaela, who gave it to him very consensually. Now, this story should be upsetting to everyone in New York State, but I think it will be particularly, and perhaps less importantly, upsetting to people who, like Brian Benjamin, have 2 first names. Now, this is an issue that we've discussed on the show before, but I just have to say that Brian Benjamin having 2 first names and being indicted like this gives a bad rap to other people who have 2 first names, like congressional candidate Josh Riley, or State Democratic Party Chairman Jay Jacobs, or even my friend Jack Lucas.
Seriously, Luke? You're gonna have me on your channel again just because some political figure in the news has 2 first names? I'm trying to enjoy my vacation, man.
Sorry, Jack. This story is bad news for Jay Jacobs, even outside of the 2 first names thing, because Brian Benjamin will almost certainly remain on the ballot for the Democratic Party line in the upcoming June lieutenant governor primary elections. According to the State Board of Elections, Benjamin's name can only be taken off the ballot in 3 scenarios: death, declination, or disqualification. They wrote to Nick Reisman, a state politics reporter for Spectrum News, quote, "Death is self-explanatory," which is a magnificent sentence that I would like us all to just pause on and reflect for a moment. Continuing on, Benjamin has already missed the deadlines for the declination of his nomination, which only leaves the disqualification of himself, meaning that he no longer meets the age and residency requirements of the office he's seeking. For age, it's silly to think that Benjamin could age backwards and disqualify himself. After all, you can't age backwards, as much as Simon Cowell has tried. But Benjamin could disqualify himself on residency if he moved out of the state of New York. So I'm guessing that a lot of people are hoping that the lieutenant governor decides to move out of state very soon. And honestly, Brian, why don't you come down here? I mean, Florida has a great track record of accepting corrupt New York politicians who are trying to escape prosecution. But Brian Benjamin will probably remain on the Democratic Party line for the lieutenant governorship, even after the bad thing that he did. It's like when, after Will Smith slapped Chris Rock and was still eligible to win the Academy Award for Best Actor. It doesn't feel right, does it? But unlike Will Smith, who did still end up winning his Oscar, it's highly unlikely that Brian Benjamin will end up winning in June because, as it turns out, being arrested and indicted on multiple counts of fraud and bribery isn't a good look for a candidate for elected office. This creates a huge problem for Jacobs and the state Democratic Party because the other candidates who could win the lieutenant governorship are somewhat hostile to current Governor Kathy Hochul. According to the New York Times, in the June primary, quote, Mr. Benjamin faces two formidable primary opponents. And if either were to defeat him and Ms. Hochul still prevails in her race, the governor could find herself on a Democratic ticket in this fall's general election with a relatively adversarial running mate. I am sure that there will be more developments on this story in the future, and I was looking forward to covering them as an objective, down-the-middle independent journalist. But then, guys, I don't know. Brian Benjamin sent me something. And I gotta say, the man knows how to bribe. So, Brian, if you need me for anything at all, you should know that we go together like bread and butter. Thanks for watching Elected, everybody. Here you go.